Kazuma Kiryu's story plays out for the first time ever on current consoles. I've just completed the whole series, so which game is better? Let's find out. Hi, it's Ollie from Cross-Platform Gaming, or XPR for short, and today we're looking at the Yakuza series. The wacky Japanese crime epic is a fantastic series to get started on current consoles, and, as I said at the top of the show, this is now possible. This list is going to cover the latest releases of each title, so Yakuza's 1 and 2 won't be featured, but their Kiwami remastered counterparts will find their places here. And the recent Yakuza Remastered collection will appear with the entries of Yakuza's 3, 4 and 5. I started my journey in Yakuza with Yakuza 0 and played in chronological order, so that may have an impact on this list. One tiny little bit more of housekeeping before we get started is that this list will only consist of the 7 Western mainline releases, so there's no room for games like Yakuza Dead Souls or the spin-off Judgment. I'm a big fan of the series and I'm very happy with my decision to get invested during this lockdown period. I do want to make it clear though, that I think all of the games are fantastic and there is no Yakuza games that aren't worth getting involved in. So by no means is the first entry a bad game. I'd say we're looking at 8 or 9s out of 10 across the board. So let's find out what the first game is, shall we? Number 7, Yakuza 3. The hardest thing to do with this list is to put one of the games at the bottom of the pile, especially as it's Yakuza 3, which is brilliant. In Yakuza 3, we join Kiryu at the Morning Glory orphanage that he is now running after the events of Kiwami 2. Yes, Morning Glory, I know, Japanese to English isn't always the best option. In the original Yakuza 3, the Western games had the orphanage under the name of Sunshine Orphanage due to the connotations of its actual name, but the remastered has been shipped to Western audiences with that divisive original Japanese name. This list is for series veterans and newcomers alike, so I'm going to stray from giving out too many spoilers here. However, whilst the story on Yakuza 3 is great, it's probably the weakest in the series, but that's only slightly. One of the standout parts of the story is Kiryu's budding relationship with Rikiya, who has a brilliant story arc throughout the game. Rikiya is one of a number of characters that you meet in a new locale for the series. The orphanage is in Okinawa, so the player gets to roam around Ryukyu in Okinawa as Kiryu in his new flowery tourist-like shirt. Okinawa is captured really well in this, with dazzling blue seas and white sand beaches. It's genuinely made me want to visit the place myself in real life, as long as some of the characters there do remain in fiction. Yakuza 3 is the first game in the remastered collection, so graphics do let it down slightly, as the 3 games on the collection are just tweaked and have been given a few texture packs since their original PS3 releases. On the whole, they control the same as they did before, so they do feel a tad dated, especially if, like me, you're playing in the in-game date order, and you've just finished playing one of the best looking games in the series in Yakuza Kiwami 2. The combat, while still being the satisfying Yakuza combat as usual, does feel a little clunky at times, and that's improved once you get into Yakuza 4 and 5, so that also holds it back a little bit. All in all, Yakuza 3 feels a little smaller than the more expansive games to follow, so let's get started on one of those. Number 6, Yakuza 4. So following on from Yakuza 3, both on this list and in in-game canon, is Yakuza 4. Some of the drawbacks on the last game remain here with the visuals and controls, but combat is improved by far. The satisfying crunch of taking out street punks and mob bosses really comes into its own here, even more so with 4 different combat styles to master as there are now 4 protagonists. The game comes in 4 parts and a finale, with each playable character having their own parts and coming together in the closing stages. It serves as a main introduction to 2 fan favourites, with Akiyama and Saejima playing big roles in the later games going forward, and those characters' parts alongside Kiryu's are definitely the better parts of this entry. The other character you play as is Tanimura, which is potentially what brings this game down a little. The story is still strong with Tanimura, but it doesn't really stand up against Akiyama, Saejima and Kiryu's parts. This is compounded even more when you realise that Tanimura doesn't show up again in the series, whilst the other characters remain throughout. The 4 protagonist decision was a way that the series could refresh itself, and worked really well here, years before GTA tried a similar thing in GTA V to great effect. This game really takes on the crime soap opera type of story and adds even more to the already fleshed out Kiryu character and the Yakuza universe as a whole. Two main characters come in, with you starting the game as Akiyama and playing as series regular Goro Majima's sworn brother in Saejima. As a side note, Majima is one of my favourite characters of the whole series, but more on him to follow. Number 5. Yakuza V. The next game is the final game in the Yakuza Remastered collection, Yakuza V. Yakuza V is huge. You play as 5 different characters here, and it's long been a fan favourite game, so this could be one of the more controversial placements in this list. You're looking at a minimum of 40 hours to experience most of what this game has to offer, so it eclipses the playtime of the other games by almost double. It's crammed full of new mini-games and side stories, and adds even more locales to the series' canonical lore. The main reason why Yakuza V is this low down in the list for me is that sometimes the story is broken up for an hour or so, and you can find yourself completely forgetting where you are in the main story, whilst playing what could be viewed as filler content. There's a portion of the game whilst playing as Saejima, where you go hunting and you're stuck in a mountainous village that, for me, felt like it went on for ages, and I found myself forgetting what Saejima's main goal was once we'd cleared this bit of the game, albeit with said portion still being quite fun to play. The game introduces a brand new protagonist, with former baseball pro Shinada, who comes into the game with a great narrative of unpiecing a sporting conspiracy, and also comes packed with a new combat style. This is the first time players can play as Kiryu's adoptive daughter Haruka, which is a big moment for players who have been playing through the entire series up to this point. Her chapters are very different from anything else in the series, as you're striving to make a name for yourself on TV and stage as a popular singer and dancer. You'll be wondering how this relates to the narrative of the game, but the signature Yakuza twists and turns will sew this up with a nice bow, and you'll realise that everything you've been doing contributes to the fantastic story of Yakuza V. You'll be tearing through 5 different cities and unlocking the most combat skills in the series to date. You'll also fight a big bear in the woods, but if you've played any of the series, nothing will surprise you about that at all. Number 4. Yakuza VI, The Song of Life. The latest in the series, and the culmination of Kiryu's story, is Yakuza VI. The main man's narrative is finished off here, and you'll finally be saying goodbye to Kiryu as a playable character since joining him all the way back in the 80s in Yakuza 0. Yakuza 6, alongside Kiwami 2, are the best looking games in this series. They're built using the game devs Ryu ga Gotoku's new Dragon engine, which in particular really shows off its ability to display facial expressions from main characters in the story. You're uncovering conspiracies and secrets again in this title, and it's a really good send off for the best character in the series. If you're playing through the whole thing and this is your last game, I'd urge you to take your time with this one so you can see off Kiryu in the best way that you see fit. It's half the length of the Yakuza V juggernaut, but its story still does match up to that quality. It also brings with it superior combat mechanics and more wacky yet amazing minigames. It introduces a new hunger mechanic that earns you XP to upgrade your fighting manoeuvres and social skills, which is a fun way of doing things. One of the skills to upgrade is your sprinting, which I would suggest you prioritise if you've been playing the games leading up to this one. Both of the games on the Dragon engine strangely only allow you to walk when not holding down the sprint button. When you can run or jog on all the other games, you'll feel far slower going around the map than you usually would. Kiryu, as you know, is a complete tank, so he can sprint for quite some time, but once he's gassed he'll stop for a while to catch his breath and you can only walk from there, so sprinting as far as possible will help you navigate the streets of Yakuza 6's new city as quickly and as efficiently as possible. The aforementioned new city for this game is Onomichi in Hiroshima. The shipbuilding city plays a pivotal part in the story and is wonderfully reimagined here, so it's well worth the time to explore and meet the locals. Like Yakuza 3, one of the relationships Kiryu builds with a new city native is really well written and played out here, with Hiroshima local Nagumo and his boys from the Hiroshi family in Onomichi. We're making our move into the top 3 with our next entry, so let's see which game placed third. Number 3. Yakuza Kiwami 2. Yakuza Kiwami 2 comes in at third place, officially a remaster of Yakuza 2, but more like a remake. It's the latest game released in the West in the series, so it's the best looking. It shares a lot of its gameplay with Yakuza 6 and builds on it, hence its place in the list here. Yakuza has some great villains, and one of its best, Ryuji Goda, is the main antagonist of this game. The soap opera feels are back with this one, as the story is lined with disjointed families and betrayal and plays out really well. One of the things holding this game back from the top spots is that some of the main characters in the story don't show up too much in the following games, which stifles their importance to the greater picture somewhat, but they're enjoyable as hell for the brief time they're here. The remake really is the most definitive way to play one of the best games in the series, and it adds tons of new things. If you've been following the series by starting with Yakuza 0, there's a brand new game mode called the Majima Saga, where you play as the eccentric yet brilliant Goro Majima, and it ties the Kiwami games and prequel together fantastically and organically, with one particularly emotional scene that needs to be played to be experienced properly. The hunger mechanic is back, with what seems like thousands of new restaurants and eateries, and again there's millions of added minigames and side stories to sink your hours into. The combat is sleek and satisfying once again, with a plethora of upgrades and skills to invest your XP into. You'll be careering through series mainstay Kamurocho, widely regarded as one of the best settings of the games, and also visiting a series regular city in Sotenbori, which just so happens to be regarded as the second best series city. So you've got the best graphics in the series and the two best cities, so Kiwami 2 is a stellar entry that cannot be missed. Number 2. Yakuza Kiwami. So here's the runner-up. It's the remake of the first game, Yakuza Kiwami. Its placement on this list may have been helped with the fact that I started with Yakuza 0, as this picks up from that straight away, so the story really resonated with me. The story in this one is one of the best, second to only one game in the series, and more of that to come. The villain may be the greatest that Kiryu has come up against, especially if you're following on from 0. One of the additions in this game is a mechanic called Majima Everywhere, where you face Majima in bouts across Kamurocho to upgrade your dragon fighting style. If anything means more Majima, then I'm in. Please take all of my yen. It's the first game that introduces Kiryu's adoptive daughter Haruka, who is a constant throughout the rest of the series and is a major component in Kiryu's entire character arc. This game plants the seeds for the main story of the whole of the Yakuza saga and sets up things nicely for the years to come and all of the trials and tribulations for Kiryu and the Tojo clan. This game also starts the theme of a central character to the story being shot in the head right before they reveal everything to Kiryu. Get used to that, as whenever you defeat a villain in battle, the real villain seems to pop up and dispatch of them right when you think you're going to find out everything. All of the vintage tropes of Yakuza are here, and this game will showcase the brilliance that is to come. I feel that this really sets the bar for remakes, with re-recorded lines from the original cast and some new added scenes to the game, and ones we missed out on in the West. I said with the last entry that Kiwami 2 is the definitive way to play Yakuza 2, and that still stands with this. This is 100% the absolute best way to play the first Yakuza game. Honourable mention, Yakuza Like a Dragon. Just before we embark on our last leg with the number 1 entry, I wanted to give a quick mention to the next game upcoming in the West, Yakuza Like a Dragon. It was just shown off to be a launch title for the Xbox Series X, so we can't be too far away from the Western release. The game has been out in Japan since January and has been received well. It comes with a brand new combat mechanic, with turn-based battling seeing its series debut. It's the first game in the series after Kiryu's story has been wrapped up, so we'll get to know a new protagonist, and I can't wait to get my hands on this one. Stay tuned to XPL for all the latest news on the next Yakuza game as soon as we know. Number 1. Yakuza 0. And we've made it to the best game in the Yakuza back catalogue. It's the prequel, Yakuza 0, the first ever Yakuza game I played. If you've made it this far into the video, leave us a comment saying eye patch in honour of my guy Goro Majima and let us know what order you'd put the games in. Yakuza 0, and this may be controversial, has one of the best stories in gaming. I realise that might be going a little too far, but I can't stress how fantastic I think this game's story is. It's been built on the same engine as Yakuza Kiwami, and there is so much to do. The glorious main story aside, there are great side sub-stories and the ever-present minigames. All the characters in this one, main or support, leave a lasting impression, and the events of this game can still be felt in all of the following games. Spoilers aside, the game is centred around a plot of land on the map that is transformed in the later games due to the events from this one. So, whenever you're in Kamurocho, you will always see the scar of Yakuza 0, whether you're in Yakuza Kiwami and all the way up to 2016 with Yakuza 6. You play through this game in the perspectives of a young Kiryu and the legend that is Majima, before he turned into the crazed yet lovable lunatic that he is. It takes place in the two best cities again, with Kiryu mainly in Kamurocho and Majima in Sotenbori, and both cities come to life magnificently as bustling lived-in metropolises, Place is, if you're starting the series, you need to start with this game. I promise you that if you play this and give it some of your hard-earned time, you'll feel like you need to play and see what happens in the following games, and you'll be sucked into the series just like I was. There's no better time than now to jump in either, as with the current Big in Japan sale on PlayStation Store at the minute, the best game in the series is available for only £8.99, which is an absolute steal. It's also the first game that's properly branched out onto other platforms. This game is playable on Xbox One from their store and is also available at a cut price on Steam for you PC players. I can't recommend this enough. As I said on my top 10 games to play in lockdown list that you can go and watch on the channel, if you've got some spare hours lately, invest them into Yakuza and start with the extraordinary Yakuza 0. So that's my list of the Yakuza games ranked. Once again, I implore you to get stuck into the series. I finished them all off recently and I'm all in. I'll be getting whatever special edition of Yakuza Like a Dragon when we finally get it in the West. The games are quirky, emotional, fantastically written, and real pillars in the crime epic genre of gaming. Do you agree with our list, or do you think it should have gone a different way? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe to Cross-Platform Gaming for more lists, breaking news, let's plays and more. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like before parting with your £8.99 to crack on with Yakuza 0. From me and all the guys at XPL, we hope you have a wonderful day and stay safe.